The cause of death was initially listed as blunt force trauma, but a re-examination by the medical examiner revealed that lacerations present on the deceased's body were inconsistent with such an injury mechanism. A single laboratory result changed the trajectory of the entire investigation. Microscopic analysis of trace materials found under the victim's nails pointed towards a sharp object rather than any blunt instrument. The presence and pattern of these lacerations, coupled with forensic pathology findings indicating multiple incisions across various areas of the body, suggested an entirely different narrative. Further analysis revealed that the depth and configuration of these wounds were indicative of a weapon capable of producing such sharp force trauma. Redirecting investigative efforts towards weapons like knives or scissors rather than clubs or fists. This discovery not only altered the cause of death to reflect the true nature of the injuries, but also provided critical insights into the circumstances surrounding the deceased's final moments. Chapter: Case Background. The incident under investigation occurred on March 15th at a residential address in downtown Springfield, Illinois. The report was filed by a neighbor who observed unusual activity through the window of the deceased's apartment around midday. Initial observations included signs of distress and disturbance within the living space. Emergency services were promptly dispatched upon receiving the report. Upon arrival, first responders noted an array of broken household items scattered across the floor, suggesting a struggle had taken place prior to the discovery of the deceased. The scene was chaotic, with furniture overturned and various personal belongings strewn about. Due to the severity of injuries visible on entry, the presence of sharp force trauma was immediately suspected. A detailed forensic investigation ensued to uncover the sequence of events leading up to the death. Chapter: Initial findings. Upon arrival at the scene, first responders noted a male individual lying supine on the floor of his home. The environment was otherwise unremarkable, with no signs of forced entry or struggle indicative of an altercation. Observations included multiple superficial lacerations across the deceased's neck and upper torso. No defensive wounds were present, suggesting incapacitation prior to the infliction of injuries. Initial medical assessment by emergency services classified the manner of death as undetermined due to the presence of sharp force trauma without clear evidence of a homicide or suicide attempt. The decision to summon forensic pathologists was based on the intricate nature and distribution of the lacerations, necessitating a detailed examination to rule out accidental injury. Chapter: Forensic investigation. Upon arrival at the scene, forensic technicians meticulously documented the presence of bloodstains consistent with sharp force trauma on both the victim's clothing and surrounding surfaces. Notably, several small shards of glass were found embedded in lacerations observed on the deceased's forearm and neck. Swabs were taken from these areas to collect any potential DNA evidence. Additionally, a partially drawn knife was recovered near the body, exhibiting signs of recent use as evidenced by residual blood and tissue adhering to its blade. All collected items were sealed in individual bags with unique identifiers. A detailed chain of custody log was initiated upon collection to ensure secure handling throughout forensic processing. Notably absent from the scene was any evidence of forced entry or struggle outside of the immediate vicinity of the body, suggesting a potentially intimate setting for the incident. Analysis of the deceased revealed multiple sharp force injuries consistent with a bladed weapon. Macroscopic examination indicated deep lacerations on both arms and chest, necessitating histological evaluation for further characterization. Tissue samples were sectioned to assess depth and extent of trauma. Hematoxylin and eosin staining was employed to visualize cellular damage patterns indicative of sharp force mechanisms. Microscopic analysis confirmed extensive collagen disruption within the dermis layer, with irregular bleeding patterns suggestive of rapid tissue tearing. Neutrophilic infiltration indicated an acute inflammatory response at injury sites. Blood alcohol concentration, BAC, and toxicology screens were conducted, revealing no significant levels of intoxicants or drugs that might have impaired judgment or motor function. These findings support a scenario involving deliberate sharp force trauma as the primary mechanism of injury. The examination of sharp force trauma revealed multiple lacerations on the deceased's body, indicative of a series of incising actions likely performed by a single-edged implement. The nature and distribution of these injuries suggests they were inflicted after death, as evidenced by the absence of defensive wounds and hemorrhagic patterns characteristic of premortem injury. Forensic evidence, including blood spatter analysis and trace particle identification from the scene, established the sequence of events leading to and following the deceased's demise. The postmortem interval was determined through entomological examination and body decomposition markers, indicating a timeframe consistent with the discovered evidence. The presence of blowflies in various stages of development provided a reliable timeline corroborated by environmental temperature records at the time of death. This methodology yielded a high confidence level for establishing that the injuries were inflicted approximately 4 to 6 hours post-mortem. The reconstructed timeline confirmed the hypothesis that the sharp force trauma was not caused during an altercation, but rather as a result of secondary actions after the primary cause of death, likely suffocation based on soft tissue evidence. It contradicted initial assumptions regarding the presence and nature of defensive wounds or signs of resistance by the deceased prior to their demise. The examination of sharp force trauma revealed multiple lacerations consistent with a bladed weapon. Forensic analysis identified patterns indicative of defensive wounds and post-mortem cutting, suggesting an altercation prior to death. Laceration depth and angle indicated the position of both the deceased and perpetrator during the incident. Swabbing and collection from the scene provided DNA evidence corroborating witness accounts of multiple individuals present at the time. The expert would testify that these findings establish a timeline of events, confirming points of entry and exit consistent with a struggle. Certain lacerations on extremities were unequivocal defensive wounds, while others required interpretation to discern whether they occurred pre- or post-mortem. DNA evidence collected from bloodstains offers conclusive links between suspects and the scene, supporting the hypothesis of a violent confrontation resulting in fatal injuries. Chapter Resolution. The examination of the deceased concluded with a comprehensive analysis of the sharp force trauma evident in the form of lacerations. Initially, the nature of the injuries was ambiguous, necessitating further investigation to ascertain their origin and context. Through meticulous forensic evaluation, including macroscopic and microscopic analyses, it became clear that these lacerations were not self-inflicted, but rather the result of an external agent. Comparative analysis with known sharp instruments corroborated this conclusion. Additionally, trace evidence found embedded within the wound margins contributed significantly to identifying the specific weapon used. The initial assessment suggested a potential suicide or accidental injury due to superficial similarities in appearance and distribution. However, upon closer scrutiny, distinctive patterns indicative of inflicted wounds emerged. These findings were pivotal in shifting the investigation from a self-inflicted scenario towards that of an intentional act by another party. The central finding, established beyond reasonable doubt, was that these lacerations resulted from sharp force trauma inflicted post-mortem, thus altering the case's direction and focus. This case underscores the meticulous documentation and analysis required in sharp force trauma investigations, emphasizing the significance of identifying distinct patterns and characteristics of lacerations. Accurate interpretation aids in reconstructing the incident dynamics and corroborating witness statements or suspect confessions. The file remains open,